dopo la crisi. Continueremo con questo sistema economico di ingiustizia sociale e di disprezzo per la cura dell'ambiente, del creato, della casa comune.
Hi, everybody. Good evening for me from Switzerland. It's 5:30 p.m. Here in Switzerland. Good morning, good afternoon, or good day for anywhere else in the world. It's a wonderful privilege for me to introduce this session organized by the group of many volunteers around the world of the economy of Francesco, and in particular from the village of the CO2 of inequalities. Today, we are going to explore together the topic of migration and mobility, and why is this relevant in the context of inequalities. And the title of our session is How Sustainable Migration Can Lead Us Towards a Better Post-COVID World. What are the opportunities and challenges of global mobility? We will have a group of experts, very involved people discussing this with us today. We have three levels of engagement. We have the group of discussants that I will introduce in a few seconds. Then we have a group of participants within the Zoom room, and we know we have an audience following us right now on the YouTube live channel. I would like to invite everybody who's following right now that would need a translation. If you are already in the Zoom call, please go at the bottom of the screen and you will find an icon that says interpretation, and you can choose among 4 languages. And in case you need Italian language, you have to pick German. I know. I'm Italian myself, and that's a little bit of fun, but Zoom doesn't have the option for Italian. So anyway, if you pick German, it will be in Italian. If you're following us on YouTube and you need the translation, please check in the video description on YouTube. You will find the link to join the Zoom call. And once you are in the Zoom call, you can choose the translation language. Okay, so this conversation will go on for around 90 minutes, an hour and a half. But then if there are further questions, we will be happy to stay a little bit longer for those who want to stay longer and ask questions. Let's get started. I would like to ask our first 2 conversation starters to put their video on. I would like to ask Ben Sukia, who is Ben. I never like to say Ben is and then a title of his job, because Ben is Ben. But he also happens to work in the field. Ben is the head of global immigration at Rhys Edwards. And then I would also like to introduce Marco Mazzeschi, who is again Marco, but happens to work as an immigration attorney, also founder of his studio, Mazzeschi, and in particular specialized in immigration in Italy. Okay, So Ben and Marco will take us through a short presentation, more or less. I think they will spend around 5 minutes each to give us the context of this conversation. And then just after this, we will introduce the other conversation starters with us. Ben, over to you. If you want to, I know you have some slides to share with us. So if you want to
Yes, let's do. Thanks so much. Thanks, Carlo. Before I start with the slides, I just want to give everyone watching some context as to why or how we are actually here. So to begin with, to introduce how we got to this point, I work in the field of global immigration, global mobility, and during the time of lockdown, when we had lots of time on our hands to learn new things, I came across a really fascinating discussion that you yourself had, Carlo, with the incredible Kate Rayworth on the topic of donut economics, and I thought it was incredible, which, for those that don't know, is the idea of not just prioritizing wealth and increased growth, but actually looking at balance between the environment and society, and meeting the needs of the planet with meeting the needs of all people. And I was quite unfamiliar with economics generally, but that was a real eye-opener to me. And I read her book on donut economics, and I began to learn a bit more about topics such as a circular economy and circular economics. So that was the economic side of things. In terms of what I do, I'll move on to the slides very shortly. I work in the field of global immigration, global mobility. And what that involves, for those of you that aren't too familiar with it, bear with me, just pull up the slides there a second. Oh, I'm not sure. Can you all see that now? Is that working? So what global mobility is, or the industry that Marco and I work in, is essentially immigration, generally business immigration, but it will involve the movement of one person or their family from one country to another. And we help to secure their visa and their immigration status. Whilst we work in the business sector, it can involve people moving for study, it can involve people moving for work, or simply if they have a relationship or they want to move purely for personal reasons as well. And the idea that I had over learning about circular economics is, how can we fit this fantastic idea into an industry that is entirely global? The movement of people, migration, is such an important topic for many of us. I mean, many of us have moved from one country to another and had to go through that integration process. So I worked with the team at the Economy of Francesco, and we began the discussion about the importance of migration in integration, in connecting people, and what we can do in our industry, in the industry of mobility, to make the industry more sustainable, more available to everyone, rather than just a specific focus on highly skilled migrants, which obviously is the bulk of what we do, but we need to try and make migration more distributive and more circular, so it can help all people, and create a fairer system that fits into the idea of the circular economy. So Mark and I have had some conversations, and we've come up with some ideas as to what we think could solve the gap, solve the problem, one of the many problems, to make mobility, global immigration, more sustainable, more circular, so that all people can benefit from this, and countries can benefit from this as well. And some of our research led us to this very first slide here, where actually we've learned that through the IOM, that actually 2/3 of migrants that move from one place to another, one location to a new country, are moving for work, and 1/3 are moving because of conflict. So there's a great number there. There's 66% of the people that move for work-related reasons, and generally the bulk of those people are highly skilled migrants. So what is a highly skilled migrant? Well, there are 3 categories to define what a highly skilled migrant is. The first is their level of education, the second is their skills, and the third is their income. So generally speaking, the work permit process, the visa process, is a lot easier, it's a lot more straightforward if you're moving and if you have a higher degree of education, if you're considered to be highly skilled, and if you're moving for a role that potentially offers you quite a lucrative salary. What makes a highly skilled person different? Well, it's easier for them to access the visa process, as I said. there's a higher degree of mobility, so they often remain mobile rather than just settling. They have the choice, so it's not that they're forced to move, but they actually have the option, because of their employment, because of their skills, to move from one place to another, often to secure a better life, not just for them but their families as well, and the generations that follow them. Another important factor about highly skilled migration is it tends to be short to medium term. We've noticed a trend actually that's become even more short term before the pandemic, with assignments becoming, let's say, more akin to 1 year or 6 months rather than 2 to 3 years or longer. And generally, again, highly skilled migrants generally employed by companies, and they're deployed globally as part of a company's organizational strategy. So it's actually part of a wider effort for a company rather than what individuals want. So some of the investigation and research from the International Organization for Migration has shown us that by 2020, this year, there's going to be an actual shortage of high-skilled migrants. What does this actually mean? It means that there's a demand for high-skilled migration. There needs to be more high-skilled migrants. And actually, what it also has led us to learn is there's a surplus of lower-skilled workers. So there's around 32 to 35 million low-skilled workers in advanced economies, for example, in India and other developing economies. So there's actually a need here. There's a need for higher skilled workers, and there's a surplus of lower skilled workers. So this creates something which we believe is an opportunity and potential solutions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it on to Marco now to talk through some of the ideas that we've had together that we think could create a better world for more people in terms of mobility.
Yes, thank you, Ben. Yeah, you can go to slide number 6, because we discussed, and not only we studied with Ben what can be done to make migration sustainable. First of all, it's not clear within the number, the 160 million migrants that were outlined in one of the slides presented by Ben. It's not clear the number of expats or highly skilled migrants. I can assume that the numbers from what we see in Italy, from my business, for example, is not huge. Also because the cost for moving a highly skilled worker, an expat for a company, are increasingly higher in terms of relocation, social security. So the huge number of these migrants they don't migrate for choice, they migrate for need. And what can be done and to make migration sustainable? Apparently the solution is easy. We will need everyone watching TV every night, the news, and everyone is pushing countries of destination to cooperate more closely with sending countries to control migration and to reduce the incentive to migrate. But what are the challenges first? Because in the next few slides, we'll talk about possible policies to make migration more sustainable. But the current challenges are, I identified 3 main challenges. Demographic. If you look at the data circulated by the United Nations, for example, Africa population is expected to be reach 2.5 billion by 2050. And African countries are the main countries, as main sending countries. So you can imagine the needs and the pushing factor that will be from a continent like Africa. The second is a combination of COVID crisis and political reasons. Legal migration is increasingly more difficult. COVID restrictions have impacted everyone. So the global travel and has impacted a lot the traveling, the movement of people. And then more and more countries, as shown in the previous slides shown by Ben, the OECD countries of the main 20 economy, OECD countries, their policies for migration are increasingly more selective and strict. And everyone knows that the borders, more countries are building borders. So legal migration will be more difficult. That means that there will be a push for illegal migration. People jumping on a boat just for finding a new country and a new job. The last one is the problem, the huge problem of remittances. I mean, all these migrants, according to the World Bank, in 2019, last year, remittances from migrants to their home country, to their country of origin, was 550 billion US dollars. The expectation with this year, with the COVID crisis, will be a reduction between 20 and 30% of remittances. This what happens in addition to increased poverty in the country of origin. It will increase the pushing factor, the need for people still in the country of origin to migrate and find a new world, a new country, a new way of living. So what can be done? You can go. What policies can be implemented by countries in order to make migration more sustainable? First, destination countries should work more closely with countries of origin to make more active labor market policies. That doesn't mean migration, like Carlo was pointing out at the beginning, is a migrant, has been a migrant, but for choice. Migration must be a choice rather than a necessity. Until it's a necessity, there will be these migration flows will impact, like it's happening now in Europe and in many other areas of the world. There will be the continuous migration flows, and this can be changed only when country of origin will be helped by country of destination to create these new policies. Education and training is very important. Improving migrant employability. If we see Italy and Europe right now, we see that many of the migrants arriving, they are not employable. They are low-skilled workers. And until situation remains like that, is creating a lot of political pressure and economic pressure on country of destination. So migrants must be prepared before migration to be more employable in the country of destination. Next slide. We go to the next policy, pre-migration preparatory programs. That means helping prospective migrants with migration knowledge to improve their skills, especially with vocational school, technical skills. And this must be helped by countries of destination. The next policy which circular, that's very important. Circular migration. That is, migration can be successful and can be less impacting on the country of destination if become two ways. If migrants, right now, many migrants, they don't have a choice to return for economic reason, for political reason, because they leave Italy, for example, for more than 1 year, they lose their right to return to Italy, to the right to the permit to stay or a new visa. While if the two-way migration flows are facilitated, this will reduce pressure on destination countries and will help country of origin to grow, because there will be less brain drain on the country of origin. The accumulated knowledge by the migrants will return to their country. And this can be helped by the diaspora, more diaspora engagement. The people already living in the countries, in the developed countries, in the most advanced economies, there are huge communities now I'm talking about Europe, of foreigners, of people who are already living in the country, in Europe for years, and they're already second generation. The diaspora must help, the country of origin must be helped to help their original country to develop more policies to grow their economies. And then the return migration, again, make migration a reversible choice. This is very important, because I remember I read quite a lot of studies about Italians. Italy was a country of immigrants until 70, 80 years ago. And many Italians, there were 10 million of Italians who emigrated between 1890 and 1915, mostly in America, South and North America. So, and for many, migration was irreversible. Many of them were able to return to their country of origin after 30, 40 years, Once migration is reversible, this could be a real facilitation for the country of origin to grow their economies and to reduce the pressure on the country of destination. I think I just finished my time. With Ben, we added the slides that you can download. A lot of interesting references. You can find a lot of material on the internet, but these are the most interesting studies that reports that you can have a look to study further this topic. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marco and Ben, for getting us started. And maybe if I can suggest, if you will be able later on to post in a comment of the channel of the YouTube channel, the link to the slides so that they can become available to anybody who want to follow up. One of the things that we've been doing during all this incredible adventure that is the economy of Francesca has also been trying and experiment new type of conversations, and I think today we will try again to host this conversation using fishbowl technique. But maybe one additional ingredient that we added today is we're starting the conversation with some possible solutions. But we're going to backcast now into engineering what the problem really is about. And we would love to discuss this with some experts from different parts of the world that I would like to ask to put the video on, please, to Clayton, Marco again, Ben, Mariana, Roberta, and Valentina, and join me in the conversation. Wonderful. Welcome. And thank you for being here with us. We need Marco as well, as soon as you can join us. And I would like to invite now for a quick round of introductions so that we know better why you're here and what brings you here, what keeps you in this conversation, and even just who you are. And as we start this, I would like to say that we have, some of us are following on the questions that attendants are giving us on YouTube, and we are bringing them into our conversations. So we will try to honor all the questions either during the conversation or in any case and in the final Q&A. So thanks for posting your questions and your comments. We'll do our best to honor them. Let's get started with the introduction. Valentina.
Thank you, Carlo. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Valentina Rotondi. I'm currently a postdoctoral scholar at the University of Oxford. So I'm an expat too, in a sense. I moved 1 year ago with my baby while my husband stayed here in Italy. So I felt on myself this difficulty in combining work and care, in a sense, and work and family. And in my research, I basically study social sciences in general and development economics in particular. So my nomination now goes to Mariana for a brief introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mariana. I'm currently in Portugal. I am Portuguese, but I actually live in the UK. And I have lived in the UK for the past 10 years now. So just like Valentina and probably a lot of you watching this conversation, I do know what it is to move away, and it's very related with a sense of identity as well, which I think a lot of migrants can relate to. I am here on behalf of an organization called Speak Social, which actually started in Portugal, but is in a lot of different cities across the world, in Italy, Germany, UK. And what Speak does is we bring people together exactly because of those barriers. So what we do is we bring down those barriers by having language groups available and cultural exchange events, which basically bring locals together with migrants and refugees. And I'm incredibly passionate about what I currently do because I relate at a very personal level with the work that Speak does. So yeah, and who am I supposed? Oh, okay. I'm supposed to pass it on to. I don't have a name, and I remember the face, but I don't have the hello. Sorry, I can't see your name on Zoom now, and I forgot your name. So sorry.
Mariana, sorry, Roberta, before you start, Mariana.
Roberta, thank you.
I don't know if it's only me, but I could hear some whistle or some background noise from your microphone. So maybe you can try to disconnect and reconnect your microphone again. Thanks. Roberta.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roberta Ricucci. I'm still based in Italy, and I'm Italian. Thanks or due to the COVID experience, I'm now in Italy. Usually, I spend the fall semester in the US, where I'm affiliated with the University of Notre Dame in Indiana. I'm a specialist in the migratory field. I have a wide varied experience of research on migration, and specifically on second generations. I've been involved in the preparatory phase of the Global Compact of Migration as an expert of migration, and specifically on the role of second generations in the developing of their parents' home countries. And I had the chance to speaking twice at the United Nations. My recent research has generally been focused on immigrant children, second generation, and especially among Muslims living in Europe, considering their identity building process and religiousness. I leave the floor to Clayton.
Thank you so much, Roberta. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Clayton, Clayton Abreu, and I work here in Brazil in a refugee reference center at Caritas. I worked about like 10 years with migration and refugee, and recently I was in Roraima. That's a border state of Brazil, who bring many Venezuelans to Brazil. And I worked my entire life with migration and refugee. I am a lawyer, and that's I suppose that's my contribution to this conversation, the practical things and the good experiences that São Paulo here in Brazil bring to us in about global mobility, about migration. Thank you, Marco. I don't know how to pass the
I'll take it back
to you
myself.
Thank you.
Virtual. And okay, so after this first round of introduction, I can see there are already some comments and questions, which at this precise moment I want to just acknowledge, and then we are going back to them. I know all of you can read them, so keep them in the back of your mind. So the way we're going to move forward is by using what we call the virtual fishbowl, which means we are going to have a conversation where at any given time, three of us are involved, and the three people involved have the video on. The other participants will keep the video off, and anytime they want to jump into the conversation, they just put the video on and somebody else will put the video off. The idea is to keep the flow of the conversation by each of us being in service of the conversation. And by trying to take this conversation to a new place where maybe challenge what are our initial thoughts and challenge each other to try and serve this conversation and move into some exploration of what could be some answers that comes from our initial question. So in this regard, I've asked all the participants to more or less keep the intervention within 2 minutes and try to end your intervention with a question, a segue question that somebody else can pick up. So let's try this. I would like to ask Valentina and Ben to keep your video on if possible, and Clayton, Mariana, and Roberta keep it off. and just be ready to jump on board at any given time. Valentina, Ben, the question I want to pose to you is somehow related to my personal experience. And I wanted to start there because I hope maybe also some other people can relate to this. But I have left Italy as Rome as my home city when I was very small, at the age of 13, to play football. So fancy moving, not really necessity. But then I left my country when I was 22 and a half, and I traveled all the countries, many countries in my career. And the way I've always been referred to was I was an expat. Expatriate, right? Expat, and I've always been offered a nice package with that. Until I realized that actually immigration and expat were pretty much the same thing, but they were treated very differently. I remember entering negotiation about my expat package that would include a house in a special expat neighborhood of the city, a salary that was adjusted to my home country and not really to the living condition of maybe the poorer country, tickets to go back and forth, holidays. And I've always believed in this, like, wow, this is an amazing thing to be an expat. And then we have the world of actually immigration that you started to describe that is far from being as fancy as that. So if we reflect on that, from a human side, what is the difference of being an expat? So there are clearly practical, tangible things that I just listed. But then as a human side, I felt I was feeling a lot of the challenges anyway of moving into another country, maybe similar in some way to other immigrants, for sure, not of the same nature for many reasons. So let's start the conversation from that. Expats, immigrants, is this the same thing? We're talking about the same stuff, and how do you address this difference?
Sure. Do you want me to go, or Valentina? Carlo, I think this is a... Thank you. Thanks, Valentina. I think you raise a really interesting point, Carlo, and one that's personal to me as well. And actually, I'm in an interesting position in that my field of work, my clients are not too different to you. They are generally in well-paid jobs. They get asked by their companies to move to another country. They get a good salary. They get actually paid to go through a process of intercultural training. That's an actual job title within the industry of global mobility, where people help people adapt to cultures, and it's quite, in a way, straightforward, although not necessarily easy for the individual. But I also see it from the other point of view, in that my parents are immigrants. They moved to the UK in the 1960s, and they certainly did not have a package or anything that made life comfortable for them. So I've seen both sides of the coin here. And for me, the issue is adaptability. Adaptability is a really important thing to consider, in that my parents coming here in the 60s to the UK from Mauritius, from a small island in Africa, had very little, and they had no choice but to adapt. They had to integrate, because if they didn't, there was no alternative, really. I think for the expats, it's in a highly skilled role, there's almost a feeling that they can adapt if they want to. Otherwise, they can ultimately return back to where they were before, and it can be considered a failed assignment, which isn't productive for them personally, and it's not productive for their companies. But I do think adaptability and integration are really important matters, and in an employment context, I think that needs to be considered, where the person actually has to want to integrate and adapt to society. I don't know if Valentina has any thoughts on what the experience was like for her, where in her situation.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Carlo. So Well, let me start from what Ben just said, and also Carlo was saying, and also at the beginning was what was actually written on that slide. So it seems like 1/3 of the migrants are not migrating for their choices. So it is like they have to migrate, and this is the main difference between expats and migrants. In a sense, expats, they have the choice to stay. Maybe they can choose to stay, maybe they can choose a different job, they can choose a different salary, but they can still have the choice to stay in their home country. Immigrants, at least forced immigrants, or what we call like, yes, forced immigrants or migrants by necessity, are not in a situation where they can choose. So the first difference is that, so first of all, no one of us have the choice with respect to their families, the family where they are born, and the country and the location where they are born. And this makes the big difference between choices later in life. And choices later in life concern also the migration path. And so these 68 million people that are forced, in a sense, to escape from conflict and persecutions, are also forced, in a sense, to make a different choice in their life. They maybe have dreams that comes from their background, but they have to follow this necessity-driven migration. And then there is another aspect that we cannot forget. So in a sense, if you are born in poverty, you have no choice. I mean, either you stay in your country and you try to make the most out of nothing, or you think about a better position for your family. And sometimes there are also like random events that happen to your life. Think about the environment. Think about these continuously important and continuously changing climate in which we are living. So if something happened where I currently live, that is Lombardy in northern Italy, then I can cope with this changing in my environment and my surrounding situation. And I can choose as an expat to go to the UK and to work in the UK. Well, with Brexit, it would be a little bit different, but I can easily go to Germany or to.
Oh, I'm afraid we lost you, Valentina, right now. Your video also has been freezing a little bit.
Sorry. Is this okay? Yes. So I think this is the main difference and the main important thing to keep in mind. And then I have a question to leave this. So in the slides we have seen at the beginning, we have seen that actually we, as like in a sense hosting countries, we have some responsibilities, and we can promote policies in order to make this migration circular and more sustainable for every one of us. But then, I mean, we need to address some pressing points. One of these is exactly the environment. How can we deal with this? What can we do?
Thank you, Valentina. If I can add something, well, to follow up to your question, is that there is a paradox. If we see the numbers in the first slides, where 2/3, 160 million migrants are economic migrants, in reality, and please follow my word, I don't want, they have less protection than the 1/3 who are flowing for other reasons, for wars or for political reasons. I'll tell you why. Under the 1950, everyone knows about the 1951 convention about asylum seekers. You know, if you are rich Italy and you are escaping from a war, you can ask for asylum. While we are all Italian, we are both Italian, we see now that most political parties in Italy are saying, okay, but most of the migrants are economic migrants. They should be returned to their country of origin. So it's a paradox that these economic migrants have less protection in terms of stability, of someone who is asking for asylum or for humanitarian protection. That's why it's so vital that all these policies that we have discussed at the beginning are implemented, that the country of origin are helped to put in place, to enforce different policies of what are they doing now to reduce the pushing factor, to reduce this constant migration flows. It will be growing. It will be growing for the COVID. It will be growing because for the economic crisis. We be going for this globalization changes that is occurring in many economies.
If I can add some points to this discussion, following the first two speakers, Ben and Valentina, I want to recall briefly an experience I had a couple of years ago. I carried out a research on Portuguese, Spanish, and Italians moving from their own countries to Berlin and London. They were technically immigrants in these two European cities. They were inserted in a very low position in the labor market, but they strongly define themselves as expats because they recognize that labor matters, and they stress a lot that if they find themselves migrants, they should consider as poor. They should be strongly pushed in some segregated and ethnic market sector of the economy or labor market, even though they were in these sectors because they were in a very low position in the labor market. But when they want to define, to describe themselves, and specifically they want to show their success abroad to their co-peers in Italy or in Spain. Oh, listen, I'm working Alexanderplatz. Yes, I'm working at Starbucks, but never mind. It's better to be here than in Bilbao or whatever, or in the small town in southern of Italy. And in define this kind of differentiated way of thinking about people moving from one country to another, media play a key role, because as Marco has recalled, the so-called refugee crisis still continue to represent the only way through which migration is still pictured in Italy, and not only in Italy. And this is why we miss the great number of other migrants or citizens with a migratory background live in our European society, still contributing to the growth of our economy, and having already reached the top level in some societal environment.
If I can just add a little bit to what some of the other speakers have been saying, I find it really interesting because as someone who has moved from Portugal to the UK, realistically, I knew nothing. I knew nothing about my rights. I knew nothing about what I could do, and in a way, I was in a very privileged position because I would be what stereotypical, after your definitions, Ben, as well, someone would say, I'm an expat, I'm not a migrant. Stereotypically talking, realistically, it's a difference of the motives that led someone to travel from one country to the other. But it's really interesting because I feel like it's a bit of it, the changes, it needs to be a cultural change in a way that it needs to come from the top down in terms of all of those policies and all of that education and training. And I also feel like it has to come from the communities themselves, not the migrant communities that are supposed to be included or integrated in this new country or in this new community. But there's a lot to be said about the countries and the communities that welcome the new people. And I feel like it's something that sometimes is not as discussed, because it's always the people coming in where the focus in. And my question, in a way, to anyone that wants to answer or continue the conversation would be, what are we doing as me, Portuguese in Portugal, or a Portuguese person that has been in the UK for 10 years and already has a bit of knowledge, what are we doing to welcome these people, not just as governing bodies, or not just as charitable organizations where Clayton is working, for example, but just as people that are integrated in a country. What are we doing to receive these people?
Thanks very much, Mariana. I think that's a really great point, and one of the things that has enlightened me in I'd say the last 2 or 3 months, and one of the I know, Carlo, you're a big advocate of good after COVID. I think one of the things that I think can lead to good after COVID is the notion of community. I've moved to a new area at the start of the year that is slightly unusual in a way for bigger cities like London, that really has a true sense of community. And it's awoken me to the idea that to welcome all people, to welcome migrants, or not even migrants, all people in generally, and to have the sense of belonging, there's a key element to the circular economy, and to make migrants feel like they belong, we need to reignite the notion of community physically where we are, physically in the geographic locations where we are, but also we can do that in a digital way. The economy of Francesco is an incredible example of community. Within my industry of global immigration, there are many communities. There's the American Immigration Lawyers Association, or EURA, for example, that people are watching in. But the idea of not just belonging to existing communities, but creating new communities, for example, or even cross, I don't know the word, but cross kind of spreading or intersecting communities. And that's what I've really tried to do. I watched, Carlo, your talk with Kate. I connected with Stefania from the team, and here we are today, some from a different community, but we're learning new ideas, and you take this back to the notion of migrants and how you can get ideas and new perspectives from people that are not necessarily from the same circles of you, and you can develop something new. We talk about change in immigration and mobility. We talk about how the immigration laws in Italy or the US need to be more progressive, and Marco and I have had conversations about how Italy is too, in a way, it needs to have more change and more dynamic thinking. And I think when we cultivate those ideas with organizations like the Economy of Francesco, and when we mix with economists or people in government, that's what can bring about positive change for migrants. So I'd just like to bring Clayton into the conversation and just find out find out the perspective in other regions as well. And I think Brazil is a country that I'm truly in love with it. I've spent some time living there. Just wondering if there's a sense of community and what the regional differences are from your side of things, and how you've managed to develop awareness just through the idea of community on your side.
Thank you, Ben. I just want to bring here with my point of view of this difference and between expats and migrants. I think expats, it's about companies' interests, and migration, it's about the own interest of people. And expats bring me an idea of short time in a country, just to work, to make some money, and go to another country and make some money. And this is very good to companies and to countries, because in the country do not expend money with social rights, for example. And the by the other side, a migrant want to stay in the country, to live there, and to make family and everything. This is a long term in the country, and this demands some social rights that some countries are not so free to give this. So I think this conversation is about integration. How we could, as people, as social organization, as countries, to universalize some rights, some social rights that could bring rights to this migrant. And here in São Paulo, in my region here in Brazil, we have a good experience. In Brazil, we had a law, Migration Statute, that's it's in the time of dictatorships in the 70s, that it's all about security. The migrants are must be treated like an enemy of the state. And right now, since 2013, we have a new law that it's based in rights, and this law allow the states to make a lot of progress. Like in São Paulo, we have some civil spaces, forums, to migrants say what they want and be represented. And this is very important. The public structure must be a place who attract the people, who to prepare the field for these new people here in the country. So this is happening here in Brazil. Here in São Paulo, we have this progressive law, and I'm very curious about how your countries are treating this issue, about this policy to make real the words of the Pope, to attract people, to protect people, to integrate people, to promote immigration. How your countries are doing this job?
Speaking about what is going on in Italy, first of all, I think that it is necessary to clarify that we cannot speak about a national integration model. All the so-called traditional integration models like the assimilation or the multiculturalism failed in different countries, and since several years scholars used to speak about local integration model. We have to be focused on what is happening at the local level. Migrants, as well as expats, as well as families or first and second generations of migrants develop or improve or react towards the obstacles in defining their integration or social inclusion paths at the local level. Of course, there is general national legal framework in each country, focusing on how to manage migratory flows. But when we look at the different integration policies in various sectors, from school to labor market, from cultural support of or social assistance, we have to pay attention to what is happening at the local level. And even in Italy, if you compare two different cities, Valentina reminded us the Lombardy, and so we can compare the city of Milan and the city of Turin. I don't know, but less of the 200 kilometers far away, with different puzzle of migrants living in the two cities, with different, completely different integration model. And this, I think, is a key element that we have to take in account when we want to speak or to update the way of speaking about migration and integration, and the role of first, second, and subsequent generation could play in the area where they live. And the next question to me concern to what extent we can learn from most traditional immigration country in order to avoid the failures or the errors in which, for example, the UK or the, other countries where migration has a long history. And in this way we can update and avoid the risk to waste money, because testing policies means also invest money and time to time, and the risk of losing skills in the migrants, which can be really helpful to improve our economies.
Thank you, Roberta. I try to jump in here, and in a sense, can you hear me? Because I see that my internet connection is unstable. Okay, thank you so much. So, in a sense, your question opens a super nice and important conversation. So, what can we learn? So, first of all, I think that we should learn how to learn from one another. So. I personally dislike the term integration because it seems like it's like a univocal process from someone else who have to learn a culture, a language, a way of living, and whatever. But we can learn too. So it's not really a matter of integrating someone else, but it's a matter of restarting and rethinking about how we live together in societies that are evolving in a different way. So they are evolving, and they are evolving in a multicultural way. And being in a multicultural society is not bad per se, because it means like having the possibility to integrate their cultures in our culture and create something different. So I know that we are used to we are used to live in comfort zones where we know how to interact with each other, where we know what is good and what is bad, when we know what is important for the society and what is not. But we cannot think about a post-COVID world or a new world going back to what we had. It is not possible. It's simply not possible. We need to think about migration. We need to think about the future as something completely different from what has been so far. And this means learning how to, once more, not integrating them, but integrate ourselves with a new world where nothing will be the same. And this means also that, in a sense, our children can be our learning agents in this process, because they are already living in a different world where they will interact with different people in their schools. And these will make our society is a more sustainable society. If we want to imagine a path towards a future, then I think we cannot stick on policies implemented somewhere else and try to transfer those policies in other countries. We are really, we really need to start from the bottom, start from schools, start from meeting people, start from social, now in times of COVID, saying social contact is a little bit unease, but is what I had in mind. So really try to go in the street and meet people, and starting from meeting people, we can start thinking about different policies and different ways of integrating different cultures to create something different. So my question is, for us, like for human beings in societies, how can we, starting from our daily life, change our habits and our costumes like that we really become a hosting family as a society, as a country, in a sense, as a world?
Thank you, Valentina. I'm not directly answering your question, but I do a different comment. I agree on your points, but then if you look at the reality, especially now with after the COVID crisis, I think that the problem is of integration will be, even though the word is not appropriate, it will be even worse. Because if you see what's happening in Europe, in many European countries, not only Italy, how the anti-immigrants political movements are growing, this will be even worse with economic crisis, which is caused by the COVID. And this brings us also to the first question that is on the chat. You know, someone is asking, is not already the case that migration brings economic benefit also to the receiving country community? This is true, but the perception of the people, look at Italy statistics see that migrants are contributing more to what they're taking for the Italian economy in terms of social security payments, of taxes, but the perception of the people is that they're still in jobs. You know? So the migrants, and this is not only economic perception. I mean, I think generally speaking, most close communities like Italy is made by many fewer big cities and many small places, you know, and in many places, migrants are still perceived as a threat. And because there is no policies to help them or to help local people to host them. You know, they are sent from Sicily to Tuscany or to Lombardy or to anywhere without any real involvement of the local communities. What I see here, I live when I'm in Italy, I live in a small village in Tuscany, and fortunately, most of the migrants here are, I don't say they're well integrated, but they are not a harm. But there was no help by the local politician and local governors, you know, to include them in the community. So I think the reality is that in the next few years, the situation will be not improving, will be worsening. Will be worsening for many aspects, for political reasons, for economic reasons, and so I don't see a direct solution, immediate solution, rather than working more on the countries of origin.
I want to just jump in for a second. First of all, I want to thank for the comments and questions that are coming from the YouTube. I know there's a question about whether we could comment on what happened in Moria in Greece. And there was an earlier question also about diasporas. And there was an earlier comment about the fact that also expats face the challenges, many challenges in their moving into other countries. So first I wanted to acknowledge these three questions. I'm not sure whether we are ready to answer them in this precise moment. But what I wanted to try and give an additional direction to this conversation is, I think there is the word of policies and structures that can enable a better environment for the issue of migration and mobility. And I wanted to try and introduce also that there's our own world of values, personal values. And I say this because I'm always torn between my ability to reason with logic and intellectual stimulation, and then some of my primary instincts and that go back to my beliefs and my values. As an immigrant or as an expat, I've always been torn between the idea of what are my roots, what is my identity, and how much do I want to nourish that identity and defend it and protect it and pass it over to my kids. So I'm Italian. I want them to have a bit of that. My wife is Ukrainian. We want them to have a bit of that. We live in Switzerland. We've been asking ourselves, what are our roots? What is our identity? And we stumble upon this question very often. And then on the other side, I'm like, well, how important is that? How exciting is actually to merge with new identities and shape and become a citizen of the world? And so when I travel to places and move into places, I'm constantly faced with that question. Do I want to preserve my identity? Do I want to acquire a new identity and enrich it? Which of the two? How do I live with this paradox that two things that want two very different things inside myself? And then, of course, I project that to the whole world and say, which one is more right? And how do I live with that paradox? I just dropped that into the conversation.
So I think I can relate to that at, such a close level, because I mean, I have lived almost, half my life in Portugal, half my life in the UK. And in a way, kind of coming back as well to what Valentina was saying about the word integration and just kind of bringing a little bit of all of these pieces of information together. It might not be about integration, or at least it's not about integration for me, but I think it's about adaptability, which was mentioned in here as well beforehand, and adaptability from both the, anyone that's moving country or that's moving, place, to adaptability from those communities that are welcoming in new people. And although I do think that the conversation about policies is incredibly important, and I really do, and I do believe that if it doesn't start, I mean, in a way, I don't think it should start from the bottom up, or I think it should start from both places and meet halfway through, because it's about sharing that knowledge, sharing the experience. And I don't believe you can create any kind of policy without the knowledge from the people on the ground. And the people on the ground will never, ever have the opportunities and the facilities and, the operational things that we need to do our job if it's not for the policies that have been written. So I do think it's a bit of a cycle, and it's a bit of sharing. And in terms of that, almost identities and how do we create this identity? At this point, when someone asks me, so when are you going to go home? I usually reply, where's home? I literally feel half Portuguese, half English at this point. And it's really interesting because oh no, but surely we have, your identity is more Portuguese. And I'm like, actually, it's not. I've got a little bit of both. And I've learned with time. And I think the thing that I asked almost every day is, when are we going to get to a point where we accept the fact that we can keep some of the stuff that are so personal to us and so personal to our identity and the place where we were born, and we will be able to accept that we are a mix of all of that, and that's okay. We are, we are taking in the new things and the new place where we live. And when are we going to be able to transmit that to everyone that is around us, from our, the country where we were born to the country where we live in now?
I think that's a really great point, Mariana, and also what you said, Carlo, as well. I've actually been reflecting on that specific issue you initially mentioned, Carlo, and I think it's a combination of both. Actually, I think I think in terms of knowing what our values are formed through our past, I believe. Our values are formed through our parents or our grandparents or our youth, and that's really important. But at the same time, I am not the people that helped shaped my values. I am my own person. This goes back to what Mariana was saying. So it's actually a combination of what you're saying, Carlo, and that you have to look back, but also a combination of what Mariana is saying, in that we become our own person. And one of the difficulties with society and growth and development is that we're so formed and developed by other people's opinions or other people's interactions, whether it's relationships, whether it's our parents, whether it's work. And I think in many ways it's important to actually spend time to be independent and alone and develop her own identity, which is what Mariana is saying. She feels half Portuguese and half British. I would probably say the same about myself, in the fact that I was born here, but I feel that I'm partly Mauritian as well. So I think that's important. But one thing that I'd like to ask Roberta, and maybe continue the conversation, is about the future generations, and actually actually children. I think what can we do, or what should we consider in terms of our legacies in terms of migration? The partner of Kate Raworth recently wrote a book on how to be a good ancestor and leaving a legacy and thinking long term, and with Roberta's academic experience and knowledge, I'm curious to know what we can do to make society better for people in terms of the migration dialogue ahead of us, not just in the 2 or 3 years, but in 20 years or 30 years. Marco and I have also had conversations about Italy specifically, and organizations like the Economy of Francesco are quite rare, but they're unique. And what can we do to create change for the generations ahead in 20 years, in 30 years? What should we be doing now? So I'm curious to know what other people think about that.
Thanks, Ben. It is really interesting the point concerning the new generations and subsequent generation with a migratory background towards the children of immigrants or the second generation. There is a kind of assimilation anxiety among the host societies. Receiving society want to develop a specific cultural habits thanks to the schools enrollment in second generation. Children of immigrants are enrolled in the national schools, spend their free time with their Italian peers or Spanish or whatever, and the whole society would wish to observe a kind of straight line assimilation. A lot of Italians I interviewed in the last 10 years, they always stress the same thing. They would become like us. But what does it mean like us? Because it is quite difficult to define the right identity of an Italian as well as of French or Canadian or whatever. I want to remind what Valentina mentioned before. We have to start from school. We have to involve all the NGOs or civil societies working in the field in order to train local citizens, to train Italians, Portuguese, or whatever, to better understand change in their own local societies. Italy, as well as Spain or other European countries, and specifically other Southern European countries, have been strongly reshaped by migration. And it's time that citizens should develop a new intercultural perspective, should improve or should learn how to manage intercultural skills, because this is the current time and this is the future. And in this way, we have to develop a lot of partnership at each level. And there was a question in the chat concerning the EU level and what kind of policies at the European level could be taken account in this field. We have a lot of instruments, a lot of documents, a lot of studies that could support us in each field, from the academia to the primary school, from the labor market to the cultural environment, in describing to what extent we can benefit from an intercultural way of acting, of thinking, and managing the local society. And I think that now it's time to change it, and it's time to update our way of acting in each field, not only in the educational or in the academic one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Roberta, your point is spot on. I think this this idea of intercultural exchanges, that you know, and how we can do that, I think it's probably one of the things that we really need to rethink in terms of our own societies. I think one of the things that I particularly like about the work of Speak, and it's exactly about that. I think you know, in the past few years, and technology, which is really good at keeping us in contact with everyone, but realistically, we are more and more isolated. We experience a lot less of what the world and different people around the world have to share. And I think one of my beliefs, which I believe stands, you know, Speak stands for as well, it's exactly about sharing those experiences from all of us around the world. And currently, or, you know, a lot, you know, less and less, we are not being put in a situation where we get to share. And it's not about imposing our culture or our experience or our knowledge. It's about, I'm here, this is what I do, this is what I can help with, you know, what can you help me with? But, you know, the question of, you know, that follows this is, how can we put people and our kids and our, you know, future leaders of tomorrow in situations where they get to experience these differences, understanding that diversity is good, it is a beneficial thing for any society, and how can we create this instead of just sitting them down in a chair in class and tell them that is good? How can they experience this? I think that's one of the things that keeps coming up in my head over and over again.
Let me try, we have around 10 minutes until the end, and I want to try to bring a little, one more provocation. Every statement here has been provocative in a positive way. But one more provocation that I want to throw is this. There's a lot of studies about adult development that tell us that almost 60% of the adult population live in a paradigm that is called the socialized mindset. Now, the socialized mindset means that you learn how to create your identity around your tribe, your community, and you live through those relationships. It's your need, it's the way you see your world, it's the way you see success in your world, is your identity within the community that you choose. And 60%, and that means that that community is exclusive of others. Our mind is not so capable to learn the complexity of more than one community and how to make space for more than one community. Our mind, at a certain level of adult development, which is still 60% of the adult population, is only able to see within the community that we choose. Be it that community could be that you are a left party or a right party, or you are a certain religion or another religion. As open as you think you might be, you're still espousing the values of your own tribe and community. Anything else is the other. And I think in migration, we are profoundly stuck at us and the other. And we make this choice on how to relate with the other, either with tolerance, with openness, or with putting barriers. But pretty much the conversation is between me, my community, and the other. The next stage of adult development is actually able to see beyond me and the other. And you start to see the world as an integrated reality. I don't want to get too psychological in here, but I'm trying to say that perhaps the demand of us as a society that is fully able to embrace the me, my community, and the other into a narrative that is global requires a certain level of adult development and psychological complexity that is today, in the way humanity is distributed, in the way development is distributed, it doesn't exist. We haven't reached a humanity development level that can take that. I don't know if that is disturbing, is facilitating this conversation, but I just wanted to throw that and say, what do you think about that?
Roberta, do you want to go? Or sure, I'll respond to that, Carlo. It's a really interesting point, and my response to that is one single word that is probably the core of my being. It's like my colleagues hear me speak about it all the time for a number of years, and that word is empathy. We all need to learn to develop. Many of us have it already. Many of us can develop the skill of becoming more empathic. The definition of empathy is the ability to put yourself in the shoes of someone or something that is considered to be the other, and understand that perspective to navigate your actions and navigate your behavior. And we need to be more mindful of becoming more empathetic. We need to really develop the skill, and we need to help other people and society to become more empathetic. And that's why you see in politics or in science or in business that real leaders, true leaders and leadership is about being empathetic and understanding other people's perspectives. And we need that in mobility. We really need that in mobility and migration. As a person, at a personal level, I simply can't quite, I find it difficult to understand not being able to grasp or explore what the other might be. I mean, to put it in another context, I can't imagine anyone in this conversation right now that just eats English food or just eats Italian food. We all like to try different cuisines. We all like to listen to different types of music. That for me is a source of creativity. So I think, maybe there are people that just like to stick to one sort of way of living. But I think we need to be more open-minded, and we need to become more curious ourselves, and we need to encourage others to develop their curiosity and creativity, and that is important in life, and that's important in mobility, and it's important in leadership. but I'm curious to know if Roberta has another perspective on her side from the academic side of things as well.
Thanks, Ben. I don't have the right answer, but from my perspective, I strongly believe that to develop a real society where all the different can be taken account, and where migrants with their own cultural set of norms, beliefs, and habit should show and develop their own identity, accepting or refusing the strongest values of the host society, in order to realize this kind of society where all the different should find their own place. We have to realize a society where the full set of rights should be recognized to all migrants, from social to political arena. Starting from the Italian case, where more than 1.5 million of migrants legally living in the country are in the country since more than 10 years, and they have the rights to ask for the Italian citizenship. And the process is, of course, a long process in order to become Italian. But without the Italian citizenship, without entering in the political arena, they are unable to defend their own right and to speak with their own voices. And I think that we have to develop this specific path in order to enter to the community of the citizens. It doesn't matter if you will become an Italian citizen with a Nigerian origin or a Moroccan ones or whatever. It means that you can speak at each level, and what you are going to say or what you are going to request should be specifically addressed at the local and national level. I think that without the entrance in the strong community of the political community of those who can vote and speak politically, we still have to wait for a strong, diverse society.
Thank you, Roberta. I'm conscious of time. I would like to invite back to switch on the video Ben, Valentina, Marco, Mariana, and Clayton, and invite us for a round of 1 minute each of free flow, freestyle. You can choose either something that you're taking away with you from this conversation as a one highlight, or something that you think has been missing from this conversation and you want to make sure that is acknowledged and to add, or both. I'll start myself saying that what I take away with me is more and more for me the understanding that when it comes to migration and when it comes to me and the other, and I think it's a two ways jobs. One that goes from the personal values and my ability to deal with that, I think at a personal level. And the other one is what structure can help me and enable me. And when I mean structure, I mean policies, and I mean rules and laws and anything else around me that can help me helping my values to identify with the right thing to do. So it's a two ways, my personal values on one side and enabling structure on the other side, and try to give priority to one or the other is just misleading. It would just take away or farther from any solution. And I'll ask Valentina if she want to go next, and Valentina, please, you ask somebody else.
So first of all, thank you, because this conversation was amazing. It was amazing because we went from numbers to policies to personal values, through how personal values and policies can interact and build a new and more inclusive economy. And this was, I think, the best take-home point I take from this conversation, and I really think is the way to go. So migration, as any other social phenomenon, is multidimensional, and this multidimensionality starts from the way we approach this phenomenon when we are studying it, when we are doing research on it, but also when we are living it in our own culture, in our own society, in our own families. And I really think this is the way to go for the future. So always thinking at different layers, interacting with each other, and trying to bring this concept of multidimensionality and multi-level approach, and also multi-level of thinking for us as a human being, me within my family, me within my society, but also my society within the whole society of the world. And so we have really in a sense, the necessity, and we are really living in a world that needs a different way of thinking about all these social phenomena. So thank you all for having put this conversation here, and having approached this aspect through these different layers. So I nominate Mariana as the beginning.
Thank you so much, everyone. I think the contributions have been incredible. I know I've learned a fair bit in the past hour and a half. I think what I would say I've taken from the past hour and a half reflects a bit of what Valentina has just said in terms of the different layers as well. And I think, it's not something that we're going to resolve. I think it's something that will always be around, and I think we will keep learning from our mistakes, and we'll keep developing new strategies to, cope and to improve the situation. But I would say for me, it also relates, it's very much about the human aspect of all of this. And I think for me, it's very much about us looking at, like Valentina was saying, looking at what we can do, how we can help our communities to look at this not from a place of fear, but from a place of understanding, because in the end of the day, we're all people, we're all humans, and whatever situation we're in, we all have something to contribute and something to give. And instead of looking at this from a place of fear and what is this, group of people, what's happening, it's coming from a place where we get to look at it and say, how can I learn from these new people and from all of what they have to give me? So yeah. I pass it on to Roberta.
Thanks, Mariana, and thanks for this opportunity of discussing about the topic. Personally, I would remind as the word of adaptability mentioned by Ben, and I would start to think about how to put in practice and how to develop exercise to addressing to my students in order to develop initiatives and projects to be really concrete. Because I think that beyond our discussion and beyond the studies we can develop, or the research we carry out, it is really important to improve the research policy nexus, and try to continue to offer our findings and our point of view to policymakers that we can think they are involved in other issues, or they want to to leave just on the desk our policy suggestions or whatever, but I think that is one of our role, or at least one of my role as a scholar in the field. Thanks. And I mentioned Clayton.
Thanks, Roberta. Thank you all for this inspiring conversation, because we are personally, I am involved in a lot of daily work, and it's impossible to stay in this space to think about the future of migration, and this is the point that I guess Roberta talked. It's about a phrase like, so he's different for us, but what's the concept of us? And this is I'll take with me and try to create something at Caritas. And this, Roberta, it's very important to transform our conversation here in concrete, in real action, in policy, and this is a bad moment to talk about social rights. Here in Brazil, we have this kind of president, so that's the moment to act, to raise our voices, to build this place to think about what is us, and we are very different in our own culture. So what's the things that link us? That's the point that I will bring with me. And thank you all for this. And I'll pass to Marco.
Thank you. I don't want to be negative, but we share all these values that are very important: the value of diversity, the value of the fact that migrants bring a lot to our community. I think the challenge will be to pass on and to educate these values to the people on the streets, because for us it's a bit easier to understand, because most of us, all of us, we have been expats, so we understand the difficulty, even though we are in a privileged position when we move from one place to the other. When you are moving to a different culture, is always a challenge, you know, so you have to adjust. It's easier to understand. When I'm in Italy, I live in a small community, you know, in a small village near in Tuscany, and I see that many people, despite the age, even young people, many of them, they don't understand the diversity. They're hard to accept the diversity, the different culture, and the value that different culture can bring to the advancement of a community. So the challenge for any country, any developed country, will be this, and to let the normal people, many uneducated people, understand the value of diversity and the big advantages that new cultures can bring to our communities. Thank you everyone for contributing to such an exciting discussion. Ben, please.
Grazie, Marco. Thank you. I think it's been a really fascinating conversation. My final thought on the matter is that if we're talking about a different way of thinking, and if the narrative that all of us have spoken about today and before today is about finding some kind of good after COVID, then the overriding feeling that I've had is about the importance of collaboration and about community, and not just sticking to our own bubble, but actually reaching out to new communities and reaching out to new people. If you're a lawyer, talk to a non-lawyer. If you're a non-lawyer, talk to an academic or a social entrepreneur. Or if you're from Italy, speak to someone from the UK. Or if you're from the UK, speak to someone from Brazil. And that's how we connect. We can't travel at the moment. Most of us can't travel physically, but we can travel digitally, and we can learn from new perspectives and new people, and we can meet people. Even though we have boundaries that are forced upon us at the moment, we can meet people in a very different way, in a much quicker way. So we can actually use technology to interact and integrate in ways that we might not have done before. And that's how we can learn new things and develop ideas. But really, we need to build new communities. We need to think differently. And that's what will help us and guide us towards a better post-COVID world, to keep doing this and encourage others to do the same, so that we can be empathetic and not just lead other people, but lead ourselves as well. And I think we should be hopeful. I think my final word is that we should all have hope for good things to come ahead. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ben. I want to try this and see. There should be Stefania here on the call with us. Stefania, would you want to put your video on if you are there? Oh yes, you are there. I didn't catch you in a in a private moment.
No, I'm here.
I'm calling you, Stefania, is to really acknowledge your role in organizing this conversation. I feel extremely thankful, and I'm sure everybody is in this virtual room for all your effort, putting us together, putting the agendas together, inspire us into this incredibly important conversation that is part of the larger conversation that is the economy of Francesco, and make sure that we put the right light onto this topic, which I believe and I hope we will be able to bring forward with projects, with more conversations all throughout 2021, for sure. So this is to say a big thank you to you, a big thank to all the smaller community of the CO2 of Inequalities Village, the larger community of the economy of Francesco, all of you that have been given some time for this conversation, and giving time to conversations, believe it or not, is becoming more and more precious and rare, unfortunately. But Stefania, I thought I would leave you the last word, which is whatever you want to say.
Thank you so much to all of you. The discussion was very interesting, and I think it will be also a great basis for future development about this topic inside the economy of Francesco, but not only for all the different people that will listen to this fishbowl. So thank you so much for all your words.
Thank you, Stefania. And I know there is an organizing team that's been lured.
Yes, thank you to Chiara, Suor Claudia, Alan, Lourdes, Loredana, Valentina, Carlo, Ben, of course, and so many other people. Sophia, thank you all.
So thanks everybody, and a big ciao until the next one. We are on this wonderful journey together. Let's continue to touch base and join forces. Okay, be well, be safe. Goodbye everybody, and thanks everybody for the attention.